Backstories can be an important cornerstone of your favorite character. I should know. I've been honing this craft for decades, and it's led me to some, well, controversial opinions on the subject. Welcome to the Dead Unicorn, the tabletop role-playing game club. My name is Corey. Let's go. You don't need a backstory.
You serious?
There, I said it. I said the thing that everyone is going to disagree with. But it's true. In the before time of long, long ago, a game called Dungeons & Dragons was created. Yes, we're actually going back to the OG. Here you had your class, fighter, magic user, elf, dwarf. This plus your alignment, or what side you supported in the war of law and chaos, was all you needed to understand your character. Adventures were no more than the quest for treasure and glory. No thought was given to why a character was a magic user. They were a magic user because that's what you, the player, wanted to play. And that's enough! I've narrated many epic games, many of which didn't need backstories, and everyone had a blast. So if you're apprehensive about narrating yourself, you think you have to create these intricately woven stories that touch on every character's history, and that seems like an insurmountable hill, take a breath and throw it all away. Just concentrate on the story that you want to tell. Now, players, come here. I need to talk to you for a moment. Write a backstory. Am I sending mixed messages here? Look, I need you to keep up. Backstories are great for understanding your character so you can play them to their fullest. It adds depth or emotion or meaning to all of your actions. Or, you know what? All three at once. Don't limit yourself. But unless the narrator wants to add these into their game, don't expect any loose ends in your character history to be resolved, all right? A few tips for writing your backstory. This is common advice, but it bears repeating. Remember, not to make it too long. Your narrator is busy getting the story and world together. He's compiling NPCs and reticulating splines. Make it brief and highlight the important things, like how your character grew up, what's their family like, and why they're now a warlock or a cyber psycho. Look, I don't know what game you're playing. If your narrator wants to add something from your background into their story, add a twist or a loose end that needs to be resolved. That'll help them out greatly. Modern editions of games may have rules for backgrounds, like Pathfinder, which can give you a job you had before you became an adventurer. Sure, it's just a way to add in more bonuses for your character that makes your first level paladin different from another first level paladin. But it's a good point to expand your background a little, so take advantage of that. The most important thing you need to keep in mind when writing your character backstory is the adventure is ahead of you. It's a freaking mantra. And what this means is that if your character in their backstory has already slayed dragons, defeated Sith Lords, or was president of the freaking world, then it's going to be weird when you got to go into that cave at first level to defeat some goblins. Remember, the narrator has something cool in store for your character. That is the story about how you became a hero. If you're already a hero, what's the point? Give your brief history to your narrator for approval. But here's the thing. Even if your backstory jives with the world, that may not be enough, and it might need to be changed. Look, there are a lot of reasons a history might not work. Sometimes my games, a character has a great history, but I just can't do anything in it with the story I want to tell. This is like having a Duplo block in your Lego set. You might not see that a Duplo block isn't quite right at first, and maybe it can fit. They're made by the same company after all. But it does so awkwardly and isn't part of the overall aesthetic of the thing you're trying to build. It's hard to find a place for it. This can lead a narrator to just ignore that backstory, as this guy's done many times. It's not out of malice, or because the player did a bad job. It's just, I couldn't find a spot for it, guys. You gotta forgive me. I really wanted to. This brings me back to narrators. Come on back in, narrators. Look, my friends. Remember how I said you don't need to integrate backgrounds into your game? Well, when you're ready, you should do that. Either as side plots to your main story, or if you're really brave, into the main plot itself. Hey, Backstories are a great tool to elevate your game and give it that wow factor. It gets your players really invested in the story you're telling, because they wrote that part of it. When things they created pop up in the game, well, that's when the magic really starts happening, and players can get those RPG tingles. More modern games aiming for a cinematic or story-driven feel can even make backstories part of the rules. Completing story beats will earn characters XP. Instead of the game being about treasure and glory or saving the world from the big evil bad guy, the game becomes about their characters and their personal struggles. But how do you solve the whole Duplo block problem? Well, the main way is to work with your players when they make their backstories. Remind them of the theme of your game, maybe give them hints about how they can entwine their backstory with the main plot without giving too much away. This way, it'll be less likely someone's backstory is going to be left out. Tell them what a backstory needs to have to get that starring role, so they can be a central figure in your story. I also have another way around this, and again, it's freaking controversial. Instead of players writing their own backstories, the narrator writes them instead. Or at least part of their backstory. This will ensure that player characters will all completely fit within the story the narrator wants to tell. All the characters will have a chance to have their own starring role when the time comes, so everyone gets to experience those magic moments. Here's how I do it. Write several backgrounds that could fit any character class.
There's an ancient magic your master was obsessed with, and one day he vanished. But you have some notes that could lead you to finding him again within the ancient ruins. A demon invades the dreams of the citizens. Now, it's slowly invading your dreams with strange temptations, and you have no choice but to travel to the ancient ruins to find a way to face him. To master your craft, you need the best equipment, and one of the best ingredients is made from the rarest of brimstone, demon brimstone. Now, you travel to the ancient ruins in search of the elusive item, but so is your rival, and he's already one step ahead of you.
Notice how all these can fit any character type, but are intimately tied to the main story. This means that every action they take within that story has personal meaning to that character, and hopefully that translates to the players as well. Let all the players see their backstory options, and let them pick and choose the one they like. I try to write at least one more background than the number of players. You might find that some background options are more popular than others, and when this happens, reward a player that settles for their second or third pick with a cool piece of equipment or a special addition, like an extra contact or ally. Once these backgrounds are taken, let your players build on top of them. They'll add detail and flair personalized to their character. There is a way I wouldn't go. Don't hand out to a player what their background is sight unseen. Most people play tabletop role-playing games to have a sense of freedom, to build something unique to them. While I see great opportunities in playing characters someone else has written, like when we play a JRPG we love, or running an NPC in an adventure we bought. There will be players that will feel stifled if you suggest playing anything that feels pre-generated. So, always add a choice. Let the players add their own flair. I promise, it's nothing against you as a writer. That's all I have to say on the subject, but I want to know what you expect from narrators or players where backstories are concerned. Do you think that a great game can be had without character backstories? Are you willing to try a different way of creating and using backstories? As a narrator, what do you think your obligation to backgrounds are? I want to discuss all of it, so join the club, write a comment, and never forget, go roll some dice.